7 people were released in just the last half an hour or so. The plane having taken off from Alexandria, and it was bound for Cairo, the Egyptian capital, but the hijacker claimed to be wearing a suicide belt, and the plane was diverted to Cyprus. Now, there have been reports the hijacker wanted to talk to his estranged wife in Cyprus. The foreign ministry there saying this man is not a terrorist, and his motives remain unclear. Let's go now to our correspondent in Egypt, Sharif Abdul Kouros. Sharif, what's the latest?
Well, as you mentioned, the situation is apparently over. The hijacker has been arrested. We saw footage of the plane on the tarmac with 3 of the remaining hostages descending from the plane, followed soon afterwards by a 4th, apparently climbing out of the cockpit, clambering down the plane and jogging to safety. And then after that, 3 more passengers walking off the plane. And the situation was quickly resolved after that, with the Cypriot foreign ministry tweeting that the situation is over and the hijacker has been arrested. As you mentioned, his motivations remain unclear. There were reports by the Cypriot president saying that this was not terrorism. There were reports that he wanted to speak with his estranged wife. There were conflicting reports also that he then demanded for the release of political prisoners in Egypt, but all of these were unconfirmed. It's also unclear whether, in fact, the hijacker did manage to get explosives onto the plane, or whether this was a threat with some kind of fake device. It appears no one was injured or harmed, and the situation has been resolved peacefully. And we'll have to wait and see as to what information we can glean later on from the hijacker himself.
So we don't know much about him apart from the fact that he's Egyptian, according to authorities in Cyprus.
Right. Authorities in Cyprus released his name as Saifuddin Mustafa, an Egyptian national. We know little other than that. The Egyptian state media had mistakenly identified him earlier in the day as Ibrahim Samaha, who later turned out to be one of the passengers. He later spoke with BBC and described what happened. He said that the passengers didn't really know what was going on, but the plane, he said, was picking up altitude instead of landing in Cairo. And they were initially told that something was wrong with the plane by the crew, and then they were later told that the plane had been hijacked. The plane was in the air for just over 30 minutes, a short while, and we heard this very fast-moving news story come out during the day. But it's been resolved right now. We'll have to wait and see whether he did in fact manage to smuggle explosives onto the plane. If he did, and that's a big if at this point, it would raise serious questions about security, which at airports in Egypt, which spotlight has already been shone on following the hijacking of a plane in October and the downing of it over Sinai, killing all 224 people on board. However, at this point, that's a big question, whether he did manage to smuggle explosives on, or this was just a threat with some kind of fake device. We've seen pictures that we can't authenticate being circulated on social media of the purported hijacker standing with some kind of device wrapped around his waist with wires coming out. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.